The bullet tore through sterile air. Glass exploded. Patients screamed. And the woman they'd just fired, the one they called just a nurse, stepped directly into the shooter's line of fire without hesitation. Her body jerked as the round punched through her shoulder, but her eyes never left the gunman. Blood spread across blue scrubs as she hit the ground. The hospital administrator, who'd humiliated her 20 minutes earlier, stood frozen, watching the woman he'd dismissed save a U.S. Marine's life with the precision of someone who'd done it before. Security footage would later reveal what no one knew. This wasn't her first firefight. Before we dive into this incredible story, I want to invite you to stay with me until the very end. If this story moves you, please like this video and comment with your city name so I can see how far this journey has traveled across the world. The fluorescent lights of Lakewood General Hospital hummed with their usual monotonous drone, casting harsh shadows across the administration wing. 26-year-old Sophia Reyes stood perfectly still outside Conference Room B, her blue scrubs pressed and clean, her dark hair pulled back in a regulation bun. Through the frosted glass, she could see silhouettes, 5 figures seated, 1 standing. The standing figure was gesturing aggressively. She'd been summoned here without explanation, pulled from her shift in the emergency department mid-round. 3 years at Lakewood General. 3 years of double shifts, of holding hands through final breaths, of making impossible decisions in the chaos of trauma bays. And now this. The door opened. Martin Hendricks, the hospital's chief administrative officer, stood in the threshold. Mid-50s, expensive suit, the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. "Miss Reyes, come in." The conference room smelled of stale coffee and barely concealed hostility. 4 board members sat around the table, their expressions ranging from uncomfortable to coldly neutral. A manila folder lay centered on the polished wood, her name printed across the tab in official lettering. "Please, sit," Hendricks said, though his tone suggested it wasn't really a request. Sophia remained standing. "What's this about?" Hendricks moved to the head of the table, opening the folder with deliberate slowness. "We've received multiple complaints regarding your conduct, overstepping boundaries, questioning physician orders, making autonomous decisions beyond your scope of practice." Sophia's jaw tightened. "I questioned a morphine dosage that would have killed an elderly patient with compromised renal function. I stopped a central line placement that was being performed without proper sterile technique. I called a rapid response when an intern missed obvious signs of cardiac tamponade." She paused. "I saved 3 lives doing exactly what I was trained to do." "You embarrassed attending physicians," Hendricks cut in. "You undermined the chain of command. You created a hostile work environment." "I prevented medical errors." "You forgot your place." His voice dropped, cold and final. "You're a nurse, Ms. Reyes, not a doctor, not a decision maker. Your job is to follow orders, not question them." The words hung in the air like poisoned gas. Sophia felt something shift in her chest, not anger, but a familiar, distant coldness she'd learned to recognize years ago. The same coldness she'd felt in a field hospital outside Kandahar when a colonel told her to let a wounded interpreter die because they needed to save blood products for American soldiers. She'd ignored that order, too. "Is that what this is really about?" she asked quietly. "Or is it about the fact that I filed an incident report on Dr. Brennan after he showed up to surgery, still drunk from the night before?" Hendricks' expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. "Dr. Brennan is a valued member of our surgical team with 20 years of distinguished service. Dr. Brennan nearly killed someone because his hands were shaking too badly to properly anastomose a bowel resection. I smelled the alcohol on him from across the OR. Your employment here is terminated, effective immediately." Hendricks slid a paper across the table. "Sign the separation agreement. We're offering 2 weeks severance in exchange for your silence on all internal hospital matters." Sophia looked down at the paper. Non-disparagement clause. Confidentiality agreement. Legal waiver. They wanted her gone and quiet. "And if I don't sign?" "Then you leave with nothing, and we make sure every hospital in the tri-state area knows you're a liability. Your choice." She thought about fighting it, thought about lawyers, appeals, the truth. But she'd seen how these battles went. Institutions protected their own. Power protected power. And she was just a nurse. Sophia picked up the pen, signed her name with steady strokes, and slid the paper back across the table. "You're making a mistake." Hendricks smiled thinly. "I don't think so. Security will escort you to your locker. You have 15 minutes to collect your belongings and surrender your badge." The security guard who met her outside the conference room was young, apologetic. "Sorry about this, Ms. Reyes. I always thought you were good at your job." "Thanks, Marcus." She managed a small smile. "Just doing what I'm told, right?" Her locker was in the staff area adjacent to the ER, the department she'd called home for 3 years. As she spun the combination, she could hear the familiar sounds: monitor alarms, rapid conversations, the pneumatic whoosh of automatic doors. Someone was coding in Bay 3. She could tell by the rhythm of the voices, the controlled urgency. Her locker opened to reveal the accumulation of her time here. An extra pair of shoes, protein bars, a framed photo of her younger brother in his army dress uniform, a worn copy of a tactical medicine manual she'd carried through 2 deployments. Hidden behind her spare scrubs was something else, a small shadow box she'd never displayed. Inside, her Navy Corpsman insignia, a Purple Heart, and a combat action ribbon. She'd served 4 years as a hospital corpsman, the last 2 embedded with a Marine Special Operations team in Afghanistan. She'd run toward Gunfire while others ran away. She'd performed emergency thoracotomies in the back of moving vehicles. She'd held pressure on wounds that wouldn't stop bleeding and made decisions about who lived and who died with nothing but her training and her hands. When she came home, she wanted normal. She wanted to save lives without the sound of mortars. She wanted to use her skills in a place where the greatest danger was lawsuit, not improvised explosives. She'd gotten her RN, taken the job at Lakewood General, and never mentioned her service record beyond checking a box on her application. Now she understood why people like Hendricks saw her as a threat. She didn't defer. She didn't perform submission. She'd spent too many years making life-or-death calls to pretend she couldn't recognize medical incompetence when she saw it. Sophia packed her belongings into a canvas bag, clipped the shadow box carefully into her backpack, and closed the locker for the last time. The security guard waited at a respectful distance. "Ready?" he asked. "Yeah." They walked through the main corridor toward the staff exit, passing the ER entrance. Through the windows, she could see the usual controlled chaos: nurses moving with purpose, residents looking stressed, the eternal dance of emergency medicine. This had been her world. Now it was just a place she used to work. The guard pushed open the exit door, and Sophia stepped toward it. The explosion of sound hit them first. Screaming. Not patient screaming, but raw terror. Then came the crash of something heavy hitting the floor, the distinctive crack of breaking glass, and a sound that made every muscle in Sophia's body lock into combat-ready tension. Gunfire. 2 shots, rapid succession, from inside the ER. The security guard's hand went to his radio. "Shots fired! Shots fired in the ER! Need immediate—" Sophia was already moving, not toward the exit, toward the sound. "Miss Reyes, wait!" She ignored him, her body operating on instinct carved by years of training. The canvas bag hit the floor, her backpack stayed on. Old habit, never leave your medical gear. She pushed through the door back into the ER corridor. The scene registered in fragments, her brain processing threat assessment automatically. 2 men, both armed, one holding a pistol on a group of patients and staff huddled near the triage desk, the other dragging someone. Someone in uniform, military dress blues, blood on the jacket. A third figure on the floor, not moving. Glass everywhere from the shattered security partition. The metallic smell of gunpowder mixing with antiseptic and fear. The man being dragged was still conscious, trying to resist despite obvious injury. His uniform was U.S. Marine Corps, the rank insignia of a captain. Blood was spreading from somewhere under his left arm. His face was pale, but his eyes were alert, calculating. "Everybody stays down!" The first gunman was early 30s, wild-eyed, sweating despite the air conditioning. His weapon hand shook. Amateur. "We need a doctor. Now!" The second man, older and calmer, kept his gun trained on the Marine. "You move, Captain, and I put one in your head. Understand?" The Marine's jaw was clenched, but he nodded slightly. Sophia's mind raced through scenarios. 2 shooters, both armed. At least 15 civilians in the line of fire. One injured Marine, possibly a hostage or possibly the target. The wounded man on the floor, shot by the gunmen or caught in crossfire. ER staff visible behind the triage desk, including Jennifer Park, a senior nurse who'd been Sophia's mentor. Jennifer's eyes were locked on Sophia, silently screaming for her to run, to get out, to save herself. Sophia stayed perfectly still, assessing angles, cover points, distances. The older gunman had his back partially to her, focused on keeping the Marine controlled. The younger one was panicking, his attention scattered across the room. Neither had spotted her yet in the corridor shadows. This was bad. This was rapidly deteriorating toward mass casualty. The panicked one would start shooting soon. Fear made people pull triggers. And then the younger gunman's eyes found her. You! He swung the pistol toward her, grip terrible, finger tight on the trigger. Get over here! You a nurse? Sophia raised her hand slowly, stepping into the light. Yes. Good. You're gonna fix him. He gestured frantically at someone Sophia couldn't see clearly yet. You're gonna fix him or everybody dies. She moved forward carefully, keeping her hands visible, her body language non-threatening. As she got closer, she saw the third man clearly, also early 30s, Hispanic, gunshot wound to the abdomen, bleeding heavily onto the linoleum. The blood pool was expanding. Arterial hit, probably. Minutes, not hours. What happened? Sophia kept her voice calm, professional. Shut up and fix him! The younger gunman was losing it, waving the gun erratically. I need to know what happened to treat him properly. She knelt beside the wounded man, her hands already assessing, pulse thready, respiration shallow, skin cold and clammy. Shock, advancing rapidly. Was he shot? When? 20 minutes ago. The older gunman's voice was harder, more controlled. He kept the pistol pressed against the Marine's temple. Federal agents. He needs surgery. Federal agents. Marines. Gunshot wounds. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong or a domestic dispute. This was something else entirely. Sophia looked up at the ER staff behind the triage desk. I need trauma supplies. Hemostatic dressings, IV access, O-negative blood. Now. Jennifer started to move, but Hendrix's voice cut through the chaos. Nobody move. He'd emerged from behind an overturned chair, his earlier confidence completely evaporated. Don't do anything unless they specifically... Shut up. Sophia didn't even look at him. Jennifer, Trauma Bay 2. Everything I just said. Move. Jennifer moved. The younger gunman's pistol came back to Sophia's head. Who's in charge here? Who's the doctor? There is no doctor, Sophia said flatly, packing the abdominal wound with gauze from the emergency kit on the wall. It's Sunday evening. Attending doesn't come on until 7. You've got me or you've got nothing. You said you're a nurse. I'm the person who's going to keep your friend from bleeding out in the next 5 minutes. Now shut up and let me work. Something in her tone, the absolute certainty, the command presence, made him step back. Sophia had learned long ago that panicked people needed someone to be in control. If you acted like you were in charge, most of them would let you take charge. Jennifer returned with supplies, her hands shaking but steady enough. Sophia started working. IV access first. 2 large-bore catheters in the antecubital veins. The wounded man groaned as she worked, semi-conscious, pupils still reactive, blood pressure dropping but not flatlined yet. Still savable, maybe. What's his name? Sophia asked, running the IV fluids wide open. Rico, the older gunman said. Is he going to make it? Not unless he gets to an OR in the next 15 minutes. Sophia applied pressure dressings, her hands moving with practiced efficiency. He needs a surgeon. Then call one. They're 20 minutes out minimum on a Sunday night. He'll be dead in 10. She looked up, meeting the older gunman's eyes directly. You need to let these people go and surrender. It's the only way he survives. The man's expression hardened. Not happening. He goes to surgery, we go with him, we walk out when he's stable. That's not how this works. That's exactly how this works. The younger one was spiraling again. We're not going to prison. We're not... The sound of sirens penetrated the walls. Multiple units getting closer. The older gunman cursed softly. Daniels, watch the door. The younger one, Daniels, moved toward the ER entrance, his weapon sweeping nervously. The older one pulled the Marine captain closer, using him as a shield. "Nobody comes in. Nobody leaves. Tell them." Sophia's mind was racing. The police would set up a perimeter, try to negotiate, standard hostage protocol. These men were cornered and armed and panicking. The Marine was clearly important to them somehow. Leverage or target, she couldn't tell which. Rico was dying. The civilians were frozen in terror, and she was the only person in the room with any tactical training whatsoever. She needed information, needed to understand what she was dealing with. "What did the Marine do?" she asked quietly, still working on Rico. "Why are you running from federal agents?" The older gunman's eyes flicked to her, calculating. "You don't need to know that. If you want my help keeping this situation from turning into a massacre, yeah, I do." A long pause. Then, "Captain Vale is very valuable to a lot of people who don't want him completing his mission here." "What mission?" "Classified. This came from the Marine, Captain Vale," his voice strained but clear. "They're domestic terrorists. Federal task force has been tracking them for 3 months. They're trying to prevent—" The older gunman slammed the pistol against Vale's head, not hard enough to knock him out, but enough to shut him up. "I said classified, Captain." Blood ran down Vale's temple. His eyes met Sophia's for just a moment, and she saw something there. Recognition. Not of her face, but of something else. The way she moved, the way she assessed, the way she'd taken control. He knew what she was, or what she'd been. The sirens stopped outside. Through the windows, Sophia could see the reflection of red and blue lights. Police vehicles, multiple units. Someone with a megaphone was setting up. "This is the Lakewood Police Department. The building is surrounded. Send out the hostages and we can talk." Daniels was hyperventilating now, his gun hand shaking worse. "We're trapped. We're trapped, Marcus. They're gonna—" "Shut up." Marcus, the older gunman, was trying to think. "We've got leverage. We've got the Marine. We've got hostages. They can't rush us." "They will if you hurt anyone," Sophia said. She'd finished what she could for Rico. He was stabilized temporarily, but the clock was still running. "You know how this ends. You either surrender or die here. There's a third option." Marcus's eyes were cold. "We walk out with the captain. Use him as a shield. They won't risk killing a federal officer." "They will if you make them choose between 1 life and 20. Sophia stood slowly, her hands still visible. "I've seen it happen. You think you're the first person to try this? You think hostage situations end well? They don't. You don't know what you're talking about." "I know exactly what I'm talking about." Her voice dropped, hardened. "I've been in combat situations that make this look like a parking dispute. I've seen people make your exact decisions. They all ended the same way." Something shifted in Marcus's expression. "Who are you?" Before Sophia could answer, Hendricks spoke up from his hiding spot, his voice shrill with barely controlled panic. "She's nobody! She's just a nurse! She was fired today! She doesn't even work here anymore!" Every eye in the room turned to Hendricks, then back to Sophia. Marcus smiled slowly, and it was not a nice smile. "Fired? Really?" Sophia said nothing. "What'd you do, nurse? Steal medications? Screw up a patient?" "She questioned people," Hendricks said, apparently deciding that throwing Sophia under the bus might save his own skin. "She overstepped her authority. She thinks she knows better than the doctors. She's insubordinate and reckless, and I saved people they were willing to let die," Sophia said quietly. "Same thing I'm trying to do now." The megaphone outside crackled to life again. "This is Special Agent Sarah Chen with the FBI. We know you have hostages. We know you're injured. Let's talk about how we resolve this peacefully." FBI. Not just local police. Sophia's tactical assessment crystallized. Federal agents after domestic terrorists who were targeting a Marine captain on some kind of classified mission. This wasn't random. This was coordinated, which meant they knew you'd come here, she said, looking at Marcus. They were tracking you. His expression confirmed it. "You're not getting out," Sophia continued. "This building is locked down. They've got snipers setting up, tactical teams, negotiators. You're not walking out with the captain. You're not walking out at all." "Then neither is anyone else." Daniel's voice had gone high and thin. If we're going down, we're taking... The window exploded inward. Glass erupted across the room. Smoke canisters hit the floor, spewing thick gray clouds. Someone screamed. Daniels spun toward the window, firing blindly. The shots went wide, punching into the ceiling. Sophia moved. Years of muscle memory took over. She'd trained for exactly this. Chaos, violence, zero visibility. She went low, under the smoke layer, using the triage desk for cover. Her hands found what she needed. The crash cart, wheeled and heavy. She shoved it hard toward Daniel's last position. The impact was solid. Daniels went down, his weapon skittering across the floor. Through the smoke, she could see Marcus pivoting, trying to track targets he couldn't see clearly. Captain Vale, despite his injuries, was fighting back, trying to break the grip. They struggled, two silhouettes in the gray. The gun went off. Sophia couldn't tell who'd been hit, couldn't see through the smoke, but she heard the body hit the floor, heard Vale's grunt of pain or effort, heard Marcus cursing. Then the doors crashed open and the room filled with tactical officers in full gear, weapons up, voices shouting commands. "Federal agents! Down on the ground! Hands where we can see them!" Sophia stayed low, hands visible, not moving. Standard protocol. Let them secure the scene, let them identify friendlies, don't make yourself a target. It took 90 seconds. Daniels was pulled from under the crash cart, disarmed, cuffed. Marcus was on the ground, bleeding from somewhere, two agents pinning him down. Captain Vale was being pulled to safety by tactical medics. And then someone was pulling Sophia to her feet, checking her for injuries. "Ma'am, are you hurt? Were you shot?" She shook her head, coughing from the smoke. "I'm fine. There's a critical patient, gunshot to the abdomen near the triage desk. He needs immediate surgery." "We've got him." The agent was young, professional, already coordinating with the medical team flooding in. "You need to come with me, ma'am. We need to get statements from all the hostages." "I'm not a hostage." Sophia's voice came out rougher than intended. "I work here, worked here." Yet agent looked at her more closely, taking in the blood on her scrubs, not hers, the calm in her eyes, the way she was standing. "You're the one who stabilized their casualty." "Someone had to." "You also pushed the crash cart into one of the shooters." Sophia met his eyes. "Someone had to." A flicker of something, respect maybe, crossed the agent's face. "I'm going to need you to stay on scene for a full debrief. Special Agent Chen will want to talk to you personally." Through the clearing smoke, Sophia could see the aftermath. Hostages being evacuated, their faces stunned and tear-streaked. Paramedics working on Rico, prepping him for emergency transport. Captain Vale was sitting against a wall, a medic checking his wounds while he talked rapidly into a phone. And Hendricks standing off to the side, his expensive suit rumpled, his face ashen, staring at Sophia like he was seeing her for the first time. She'd saved them. All of them. The same day they'd fired her. Jennifer appeared beside her, grabbing her into a fierce hug. "You absolute lunatic! You beautiful, crazy lunatic!" "I'm out of practice," Sophia said. "Used to be faster." "Faster? Sophia, you just..." Jennifer pulled back, eyes wide. "Where did you learn to do that?" Before Sophia could answer, a woman in an FBI windbreaker approached. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, the kind of presence that suggested she was used to being in charge. "Miss Reyes, I'm Special Agent Chen. I need to talk to you. Now." They moved to an empty trauma bay away from the chaos. Chen closed the curtain and turned to face Sophia with an expression that was part curiosity, part suspicion. "I've been doing this job for 20 years, Chen said. "I know what civilian panic looks like. I know what trained response looks like. What you did out there. That wasn't civilian panic." Sophia said nothing. "You stabilized a critical GSW under duress. You maintained tactical awareness while surrounded by armed subjects. You improvised a takedown using available resources. And you did it all with the kind of calm that only comes from experience." Chen paused. "Who are you, really?" "I told your agent. I'm a nurse." "Was a nurse. I got fired today." "Before that?" Sophia's jaw tightened. "Before that doesn't matter. It matters when you insert yourself into an active federal operation." Chen pulled out a tablet, pulled up something, turned it to show Sophia. "We ran your name through the system while securing the scene. Want to guess what came up?" The screen showed military service records, decorated Navy corpsmen, multiple combat deployments, attached to Marine Special Operations, commendations, citations, a Purple Heart earned in Helmand Province when she'd refused to abandon wounded Marines during a sustained firefight. Your records are partially sealed, Chen said, which tells me you did things that fall under classification protocols. But there's enough here to explain what I saw today. What you saw was someone trying to keep people from dying. What I saw was a highly trained combat medic operating in an urban tactical scenario with professional-level competence. Chen's voice softened slightly. The Marine captain you helped save? He's running a critical counterterrorism operation. Those men who took him hostage are part of a domestic cell we've been tracking for months. They plan to kill him today, to stop him from completing his mission. You prevented that. Sophia absorbed this information silently. So what happens now? Now I need your full statement. Everything you saw, everything you heard. These men are going away for a very long time, but we need airtight testimony. Chen paused. And then we need to talk about why a decorated combat veteran is working as an ER nurse and getting fired on the same day she saves a federal operation. I wasn't fired for being a veteran. I was fired for questioning incompetence. I gathered that from the administrator currently hyperventilating into a paper bag. Chen's smile was thin. He seems to have realized he made a significant error in judgment. Through the curtain, Sophia could hear raised voices. One of them was definitely Hendricks, defensive and panicked. The other was calm, official, delivering what sounded like very bad news. Chen noticed her attention. My colleagues are having a conversation with hospital administration about today's events, about how a terminated employee ended up in the middle of an active shooter situation, about why someone with her qualifications and experience was dismissed in the first place, about certain irregularities in personnel files and termination procedures. I signed a separation agreement, signed under duress with coercive non-disclosure terms, legally questionable even before you became a material witness in a federal investigation. Chen's eyes were sharp. This hospital's about to have a very bad week, Miss Reyes. Sophia felt something unknot in her chest. Not vindication, not yet, but the first hint that maybe, the system could work after all. The Marine captain, she said. Vale, is he going to be okay? Thanks to you, yes. The wound missed major vessels. He'll be back on duty within a week. Chen's expression shifted, became more serious. He wants to talk to you, says he owes you his life. He doesn't owe me anything. Tell him that yourself. Chen opened the curtain. He's being treated in Bay 6. Go. Sophia walked through the ER, now swarming with federal agents and local police. The hostages had been evacuated. The shooters were gone, taken into custody. The blood was being photographed and cataloged as evidence. It all felt surreal, like she'd stepped through a portal into some alternate version of her normal Sunday shift. Captain Vale was sitting on a gurney in Bay 6, his uniform jacket removed, a pressure dressing on his shoulder. He looked up as she entered, and his eyes were clear and focused despite the pain medication. Ms. Reyes, he said, I've been waiting to properly thank you. You don't need to thank me for doing what anyone wouldn't. His voice was firm. Most people run from gunfire. You ran toward it. Most people freeze. You took control. Most people would have let me take that bullet. You took it for me. Sophia blinked. What? Vale gestured to her shoulder. You're bleeding. She looked down. There was blood on her scrubs, more than she'd realized. And now that she focused on it, there was pain, sharp, burning, radiating from her left shoulder. In the chaos, she hadn't noticed. Adrenaline had masked it. A medic appeared at her side. Ma'am, I need you to sit down. Now. The room tilted slightly. Sophia sat. The medic cut away her scrub top, exposing the wound. Through and through, looked like. The bullet had grazed her shoulder, deep enough to bleed heavily, but shallow enough to miss bone and major vessels. When did this happen? The medic demanded. Sophia's mind rewound through the chaos. The smoke grenades, the shots fired. She'd been moving, pushing the crash cart. Had felt something hit her, hot and sharp. But she'd been so focused on neutralizing the threat that I got shot, she said, the realization landing with distant surprise. Huh. Yeah, huh. The medic was already prepping wound care supplies. You're incredibly lucky. Another inch medial and you'd be in surgery right now. Vale was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. You didn't even know you'd been hit. I was busy. I noticed. A pause. How long were you a corpsman? 4 years, 2 deployments. Attached to? 2nd Marine Special Operations Battalion. Mostly worked with small teams in Helmand and Kandahar. Vale's eyebrows rose. Marsoc, that explains it. Explains what? Why you move like a Marine. He shifted on the gurney, wincing. I recognized it the moment you took control in there. The way you assessed threats, established command presence, made tactical decisions under fire. I've seen it before. I've trained with people like you. The medic was cleaning Sophia's wound now, and it hurt like hell. She gritted her teeth. I'm not a Marine. Just borrowed their training for a while. Corpsmen attached to MARSOC go through the same pipeline as operators. Same schools, same standards. You're as much a Marine as anyone who wears the uniform. Vale's voice dropped. What you did today? Taking fire for someone you don't know. That's the definition of valor. Sophia didn't know how to respond to that. She'd spent 3 years trying to be normal, to distance herself from the person she'd been in combat. Now, in one chaotic hour, all of it had come flooding back. Agent Chen appeared in the doorway. Captain Vale, I need to borrow Ms. Reyes for that debrief, unless your declaration of eternal gratitude requires more time. Vale smiled slightly. I think I've embarrassed her enough. Ms. Reyes, Sophia, I meant what I said. You saved my life and my mission today. That matters. More than you know. Just try not to get shot again, Sophia said. I might not be around next time. About that. Chen's expression shifted. Both of you should know, the investigation into today's events is expanding. We're looking at how hospital security was breached, why armed fugitives were able to penetrate an ER, and what systemic failures allowed this to happen. Meaning? Sophia asked. Meaning this hospital's administration is about to be under federal scrutiny. Every policy, every personnel decision, every security protocol. Including why a decorated combat veteran with an exemplary record was terminated hours before she prevented a domestic terrorism incident. Sophia felt the weight of those words settling over her. I didn't prevent anything. I just tried to keep people alive. You kept a federal officer alive who's running an operation that will prevent future attacks. You neutralized an active threat without additional casualties. You maintained scene stability until tactical teams could intervene. Chen's eyes were intense. That's not just anything, Ms. Reyes. That's exactly what we needed, when we needed it. The medic finished bandaging Sophia's shoulder and handed her a clean scrub top. You need to follow up with your primary care doctor within 48 hours, and you should probably go home and rest. You're running on adrenaline right now, but you're going to crash hard. I don't have a job to go home to anymore, Sophia said quietly. You might want to hold that thought, Chen said. Come with me. There's someone who wants to talk to you. They walked back through the ER, which was slowly returning to normal operations. The federal agents were packing up their equipment. The blood had been cleaned. The hostages were gone. But the atmosphere was different now, charged with the aftermath of violence, with the knowledge that something terrible had almost happened here. In the administrative corridor, a group of people in suits was gathered outside Conference Room B, the same room where Sophia had been fired 6 hours earlier. She recognized some of them. Board members, the hospital's legal counsel, and several people she didn't know who had the unmistakable bearing of federal officials. And Hendricks, standing apart from the group, his face pale and drawn. One of the board members, Patricia Morrison, the only one who'd looked uncomfortable during Sophia's termination, broke away and approached. Ms. Reyes, I need to speak with you. I've given my statement to the FBI, Sophia said carefully. This isn't about the statement. Morrison glanced at Chen, who nodded permission. It's about your employment status. The board has been made aware of certain irregularities in your termination proceedings. Irregularities. The complaints filed against you were not properly investigated. The termination decision was made unilaterally by Mr. Hendricks without full board approval, which violates our bylaws. And the separation agreement you signed contains clauses that our legal counsel has determined are potentially unenforceable. Morrison's expression was carefully neutral. We're prepared to offer you full reinstatement with back pay and an apology. Sophia stared at her. You're prepared to offer? Yes. Because federal agents are investigating your hospital, and firing a combat veteran who saved lives looks really bad on the news. Morrison's carefully maintained neutrality cracked slightly. Ms. Reyes, I understand you're angry. I'm not angry. And Sophia realized it was true. She wasn't angry. She was exhausted, in pain, and suddenly, unexpectedly, aware that she'd spent 3 years trying to be smaller than she was, trying to fit into a system that didn't want people like her, people who questioned, who challenged, who refused to let bad medicine happen on their watch. I'm just done. If it's about compensation, we can discuss. It's not about money. Sophia looked past Morrison to Hendricks, who was carefully avoiding eye contact. It's about the fact that I questioned a drunk surgeon and got fired for it, that I prevented medical errors and got called insubordinate, that I saved lives and got told I didn't know my place. She turned back to Morrison. You want me to come back? Fire him first. Silence fell over the corridor. Morrison exchanged glances with the other board members. One of them, Thomas Bradley, who'd sat stone-faced during her termination, spoke up. Mr. Hendricks is under investigation for multiple violations of hospital policy. His employment status is currently under review. Under review, Sophia repeated. So, in other words, you're waiting to see how bad this gets before you make a decision. We're following proper procedures. I don't care about your procedures. Sophia's voice was quiet but carried clearly. I care about patient safety. I care about competent care. I care about working in a place where doing the right thing doesn't get you fired. She paused. You can't give me that. So keep your reinstatement offer. She turned to leave and Chen fell into step beside her. Neither of them spoke until they were outside the hospital, in the parking lot where the last of the police vehicles were pulling away. That was quite a speech, Chen said. I've had a long day. You turned down a job. A good job, from what I understand. A job at a hospital that values reputation over safety, where administrators protect bad doctors and punish good nurses. Sophia shook her head. I didn't leave the military to work in another broken system. Chen was quiet for a moment. Then, what if I told you there was another option? Sophia looked at her sharply. We need people like you, Chen said. People with tactical medicine training, combat experience, the ability to make hard calls under pressure. The FBI's Critical Incident Response Group is always looking for qualified medics. So is HRT. So is CIRG. She pulled out a business card. You want to do work that matters? Where questioning incompetence is part of the job description? Call me. Sophia took the card, studying it. Special Agent Sarah Chen, FBI. Critical Incident Response Group. A direct line and an email address. Think about it, Chen said. You clearly don't belong behind a triage desk. You belong in the field, doing what you were trained to do. Before Sophia could respond, Captain Vale emerged from the ER entrance, his arm in a sling but walking under his own power. He spotted them and headed over. Agent Chen. Miss Reyes. He looked better than he had an hour ago, still pale but steady. I wanted to catch you before you left. There's going to be a formal after-action review of today's incident. Both of you will be called to testify when this goes to trial. Understood, Sophia said. There's also going to be a commendation ceremony. The Bureau wants to recognize civilians who assisted in the operation. Vale's eyes met Sophia's. You're going to receive formal recognition for your actions today. I don't need recognition. I need to go home and sleep for 12 hours. Nevertheless, you're getting it. A slight smile. Fair warning, when the media gets hold of this story, it's going to be big. Fired nurse saves Marine from terrorists plays pretty well on the news cycle. Sophia groaned. Please tell me you can prevent that. I can try, but the truth has a way of getting out. Vale's expression grew more serious. What you did today mattered, Sophia. Not just tactically, but strategically. The mission I'm running, the one those men tried to stop, it's going to save lives, American lives. You made that possible. Then I'm glad I was in the right place at the right time. It wasn't luck. It was training and courage and the willingness to act when everyone else froze. He extended his good hand. "Thank you, sincerely." Sophia shook his hand. His grip was firm, steady. The grip of someone who understood what she'd done because he'd done similar things himself. "Get that shoulder looked at properly," she said. "And if you ever need a corpsman again, you know where to find me. I'm going to hold you to that." Vale headed back inside, and Sophia was left alone in the parking lot with Agent Chen, the business card in her hand, and the strange, dislocating sensation that her entire life had just pivoted on an axis she hadn't seen coming. Her phone buzzed. Text message from Jennifer. "Are you okay? Where did you go? The whole hospital is talking about what you did." Sophia typed back, "I'm fine. Going home. We'll call you tomorrow." Another message, this one from her brother. "Just saw the news. Are you insane? Call me immediately." She silenced her phone. The adrenaline was wearing off now, and the medic had been right. The crash was coming. Her shoulder throbbed. Her hands were starting to shake with delayed reaction. She needed to get home, process what had happened, figure out what came next. But as she walked to her car, she realized something had shifted inside her. For 3 years, she'd been trying to be someone she wasn't, trying to fit into a civilian role that felt too small, too constrained, trying to pretend that the person she'd been in combat was just a phase, a temporary version of herself that could be packed away and forgotten. Today had proven that was a lie. The person who'd run toward gunfire, who'd taken control of chaos, who'd made tactical decisions under pressure. That wasn't some combat persona. That was who she was, had always been. Sophia got in her car, started the engine, and sat for a moment in the quiet. Then she pulled out Agent Chen's business card and looked at it again. "You belong in the field, doing what you were trained to do." Maybe she did. Her phone buzzed again. Another news alert. This one had a headline. "Breaking. Armed standoff at Lakewood General Hospital ends without civilian casualties. FBI credits unnamed nurse." Unnamed for now. But Vale was right. The truth would get out. Her name would become public. Her service record would be scrutinized. The hospital that fired her would face very hard questions about why they'd terminated someone hours before she saved lives. And Hendricks, the man who'd called her just a nurse, who'd dismissed her concerns, who'd protected incompetent doctors and punished competent staff, he was about to learn exactly how wrong he'd been. Sophia's phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Ms. Reyes?" The voice was professional, formal. "This is James Morrison from the Regional FBI office. I apologize for calling so late, but we need to schedule a formal debrief for tomorrow morning. There are some developments you should be aware of regarding today's incident." "What kind of developments?" "I'd prefer to discuss them in person. Can you come to the federal building at 9 a.m.? "I suppose I've got time now," Sophia said, "since I'm unemployed." "About that." Morrison's tone shifted slightly. "I've been advised to inform you that the hospital board has requested an emergency meeting tomorrow afternoon. They want to discuss your reinstatement terms." "I already told them. They're aware of your conditions. Mr. Hendricks has been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Dr. Brennan has been suspended. The board is prepared to offer you significant concessions." Sophia absorbed this. That was fast. Federal scrutiny tends to accelerate decision-making. A pause. "There's one more thing. We've received a request from the Department of Defense. Captain Vale has submitted a formal commendation for your actions today. It's being fast-tracked through channels." "A commendation?" "For valor in the face of armed hostiles while protecting a federal officer and preventing casualties among civilians. It's going to be signed by someone fairly high up the chain of command." Another pause, heavier this time. "Ms. Reyes, what you did today is going to have consequences. Good ones, but significant. You should be prepared for that." Sophia looked out at the parking lot, at the hospital where she'd worked for 3 years and been fired in 3 minutes, at the place where she'd tried to be normal and ended up proving she was anything but. "I'll be there at 9, she said. "Thank you. And Miss Reyes, for what it's worth, the agents who were on scene today, we're all grateful. You saved one of our own. That doesn't get forgotten." The call ended. Sophia sat in the darkness of her car, feeling the weight of everything settling over her like a physical force. 24 hours ago, her biggest concern had been picking up an extra shift to cover rent. Now she was involved in a federal investigation, had been shot, had turned down a reinstatement offer, and was apparently getting a military commendation for actions she barely remembered taking. Her shoulder throbbed in rhythm with her heartbeat. The bandage was already soaking through slightly. She'd need to change it when she got home. Need to take the antibiotics the medic had given her. Need to actually process the fact that she'd been shot and hadn't even noticed until someone pointed it out. Combat training saved lives and destroyed normal. You couldn't turn it off. Couldn't pretend it wasn't part of you. She'd tried for 3 years, and in one chaotic hour, it had all come roaring back. The question now was, what came next? Sophia started her car and pulled out of the parking lot. Behind her, Lakewood General Hospital stood like a monument to the life she'd tried to live. Orderly, controlled, civilian. Ahead of her, the road stretched into darkness and uncertainty. Her phone buzzed one more time. Another text from Jennifer. They're calling you a hero. The doctors are scared. Hendricks looks like he's going to have a heart attack. Whatever happens next, I hope you know you did the right thing. Sophia smiled slightly. The right thing. She'd been doing that her whole life, and it had cost her in ways she was still counting, but she'd also saved lives in ways that mattered, including today. Her phone rang again. This time, the caller ID showed, Captain Marcus Vale. She answered. Captain? I'm sorry to bother you again. I know you need rest. His voice was serious. But there's something I need to tell you. Something that's going to come out soon anyway, and you deserve to hear it from me first. What is it? The operation those men were trying to disrupt? It's bigger than I indicated. We're not just tracking one cell. We're coordinating a nationwide takedown of multiple domestic terror networks. 27 cities, simultaneous raids scheduled for 72 hours from now. A pause. If I'd been killed today, that operation would have been delayed or compromised. Intelligence would have been lost. Targets would have scattered. You didn't just save my life, Sophia. You saved an operation that's been years in the making. Sophia's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Why are you telling me this? Because when this breaks, when the arrests happen, and the media covers it, your name is going to be part of the story. The nurse who saved the operation, the veteran who stepped up when it mattered. His voice softened. And because you deserve to know that what you did today, instinctively, without hesitation, is going to prevent attacks that would have killed innocent people. You earned your place in this story. I didn't do it for recognition. I know, that's what makes it matter. A long pause. There's going to be a lot of attention coming your way, Sophia. Political attention, media attention. You're about to become very visible. I wanted you to be prepared. Political attention, media attention. Sophia thought about her quiet life, her anonymous apartment, her careful distance from anything that might drag her back into the world of violence and chaos she'd left behind. That life was over now. Had ended the moment she'd run toward Gunfire instead of away from it. Thank you for the warning, she said finally. If you need anything, security, legal counsel, anything, you call me directly. You have my number now. Use it. I will. Get some rest. You've earned it. The call ended. Sophia drove through the empty streets of Lakewood City, her mind racing faster than the car. 72 hours until a nationwide operation. Her name connected to it, media coverage, political visibility, and somewhere in all of that chaos, the truth about who she really was would come to light. Not the fired nurse, not the insubordinate staff member, but the decorated combat veteran who'd spent years saving lives in the worst possible conditions and couldn't stop doing it, even when it cost her everything. Her apartment was dark when she arrived. She parked, sat for a moment, then forced herself to move. Everything hurt now. The adrenaline crash was complete, and her body was making her pay for ignoring a gunshot wound for 2 hours. Inside, she dropped her bag by the door, peeled off the bloody scrubs, and stood under a scalding shower until the water ran clear. The bandage stayed on. She'd change it after. Right now, she just needed to feel clean. When she emerged, wrapped in a towel, her phone was lighting up with notifications. Messages, calls, news alerts. The story was spreading, amplifying, taking on a life of its own. She ignored all of it, took 2 painkillers, and fell into bed. Sleep came hard and fast. dropping her into darkness without dreams. But somewhere in that darkness, a part of her was already preparing for what came next. Because this wasn't over. This was just beginning. And Elena Cruz, no, Sofia Reyes, the woman who'd risked everything for people who'd thrown her away, was about to discover that sometimes the greatest recognition comes not from asking for it, but from being impossible to ignore. The morning sun cut through her blinds like an interrogation light. Sophia woke to 17 missed calls, 43 text messages, and a voicemail from a number that identified itself as CNN. She deleted it without listening. Her shoulder screamed when she tried to sit up. The painkillers had worn off hours ago, leaving nothing but raw nerve endings and the deep ache of torn muscle. She forced herself upright anyway, changed the bandage with practiced efficiency, and swallowed more medication with cold coffee from yesterday. The face in the bathroom mirror looked like someone who'd been through a war. Pale skin, dark circles, a bandage visible above her tank top. But her eyes were clear, focused, operational. She had 90 minutes to get to the federal building. The news was already waiting when she checked her phone. The story had exploded overnight, metastasizing across every major outlet. Armed standoff at Lakewood General. FBI thwarts domestic terror plot. Decorated veteran saves Marine captain. Her name wasn't public yet, but the details were specific enough that anyone who'd been in that ER would recognize the story. Jennifer had texted at 3 a.m. They're bringing in crisis management consultants. The board is in full panic mode. Everyone's asking about you. Her brother had called 6 times. She'd deal with that later. Sophia dressed carefully. Dark jeans, a button-down shirt that hid the bandage, boots with good traction. Old habits. You dressed for the situation you might face, not the situation you expected. She was going to a federal building for a debrief, but her instincts were screaming that this was more than routine paperwork. The drive downtown was familiar, but everything felt different now. The city looked the same traffic, same buildings, same rhythm. But she was seeing it through different eyes, tactical eyes, assessing sight lines, choke points, vulnerability zones. Combat thinking bleeding into civilian life again. She'd spent 3 years learning to turn that off. 24 hours had undone all of it. The federal building was a fortress of glass and concrete in the government district. Sophia parked in the visitor lot, went through security with her ID and the appointment confirmation Morrison had sent. The guards were professional, efficient, and clearly briefed. One of them nodded at her with something that looked like recognition. "9th floor, ma'am. Agent Morrison is expecting you." The elevator ride felt longer than it was. When the doors opened, Agent Sarah Chen was waiting in the corridor. "You look like hell," Chen said. "I got shot yesterday." Fair point. Chen's expression was serious. "Come with me. We've got a lot to cover." They walked through corridors lined with office doors and conference rooms, past agents who glanced at Sophia with curiosity. Chen led her to a secure briefing room, windowless, soundproofed, a long table surrounded by chairs. 3 other people were already inside. Captain Marcus Vale, in full dress uniform now, his arm still in a sling. James Morrison, the agent who'd called last night, mid-40s with sharp eyes. And a woman Sophia didn't recognize, late 50s, silver hair, the kind of presence that suggested serious rank. "Ms. Reyes," the woman said, standing, "I'm Deputy Director Catherine Walsh, FBI Counterterrorism Division. Thank you for coming." Sophia shook her hand. "I was told this was a debrief." "It is, among other things." Walsh gestured to a seat. "Please." Sophia sat. The others arranged themselves around the table, Walsh at the head, Morrison and Chen flanking her, Vale across from Sophia. The setup felt formal, official, and something else she couldn't quite identify. Walsh opened a folder, pulled out several photographs, and spread them across the table. "Do you recognize these men?" Sophia looked. Marcus and Daniels, the 2 gunmen from yesterday. But there were others. 6 additional faces, all male, ranging from mid-20s to early 50s. "Just these 2, she said, pointing. "From the hospital. The others are members of their cell. We arrested them last night and coordinated raids across 3 states. Walsh's voice was matter-of-fact. "Thanks to intelligence Captain Vale was carrying when they attempted to kill him. Intelligence you helped preserve." "I helped keep him alive." The intelligence was his. The intelligence was worthless if he was dead. Vale spoke quietly. We'd been working this operation for 11 months. One bullet would have compromised everything. Walsh pulled out more documents. The cell you encountered yesterday is part of a larger network we've designated Crimson Shore. 27 active members across 8 states, planning coordinated attacks on federal facilities and personnel. Captain Vale was leading the investigation on the military side. His death would have signaled to the network that we were closing in. They would have scattered, gone underground, and we'd have lost years of work. Sophia absorbed this information silently. You said you arrested them last night. I thought the operation wasn't scheduled for another 72 hours. We accelerated the timeline. Morrison leaned forward. After yesterday's incident became public, we couldn't risk the network going dark. We had 12 hours of operational window before they'd start running. We used it. 27 arrests, Walsh continued. Weapons caches seized in 6 locations. Explosives, ammunition, detailed attack plans. We prevented something catastrophic, Ms. Reyes, and you were the catalyst. The weight of those words settled over the room. Sophia had known she'd saved Vale's life, hadn't fully understood the scope of what that meant. The reason we brought you here, Walsh said, is because your actions yesterday have created a significant situation. You're a civilian who intervened in an active federal operation with professional-level competence. You neutralized armed hostiles, you preserved critical intelligence, and you did all of it while technically not even employed by the hospital where it occurred. Technically, I was fired, Sophia said, which brings us to the other issue. Morrison pulled out a different folder, this one thicker. The hospital. We've completed a preliminary investigation into the circumstances of your termination. What we found is concerning. He opened the folder, revealing personnel files, complaint forms, incident reports. Sophia recognized some of them. Her own documentation of medical errors, safety violations, protocol breaches. Things she'd reported through official channels, things that had been ignored or buried. Mr. Hendricks falsified several complaint reports to justify your termination, Morrison continued. He backdated documentation, forged signatures, and coerced staff members into providing negative statements. We also found evidence that he'd been receiving financial incentives from Dr. Brennan and 2 other physicians to protect them from disciplinary action. Sophia felt something cold settle in her chest. He was being paid to cover up malpractice. Essentially, yes. We're pursuing criminal charges, fraud, conspiracy, obstruction. The hospital's legal exposure is substantial. Morrison's expression was grim. Your termination wasn't just unjust. It was criminal conspiracy to silence a whistleblower. I wasn't a whistleblower. I was just trying to keep patients safe, which is exactly what whistleblowers do. Chen spoke for the first time since they'd entered the room. You reported systemic failures. You documented incompetence. You refused to be silenced. That made you a threat to people who had a lot to lose. Walsh pulled the conversation back to center. The hospital board has requested a meeting with you this afternoon. They're prepared to offer full reinstatement, back pay, a formal apology, and a significant settlement to avoid litigation. They also want to create a new position, Director of Emergency Preparedness, and offer it to you. With a substantial salary increase, Morrison added, and a seat on the hospital's safety committee. Essentially, they're giving you the authority you should have had all along. Sophia looked at the 3 FBI agents and the Marine captain, all watching her with varying degrees of expectation. And you're telling me this because? Because we want you to understand your options, Walsh said. You have leverage now, public support, federal backing. You can go back to that hospital with the power to actually change things. Or you can do something else. Chen slid a different folder across the table. FBI seal on the cover. We meant what we said yesterday. The Bureau needs people with your skill set. Critical Incident Response Group, Hostage Rescue Team, tactical medicine positions across multiple divisions. You'd start with full agent training at Quantico, but your military service would count toward experience requirements. Fast-tracked advancement, field deployment, work that actually matters. Sophia opened the folder. Job descriptions, salary information, benefits packages. It was generous, more than generous. It was a complete reset of her professional life. There's a third option, Vale said quietly. Military contract work. DoD has civilian positions for tactical medics supporting special operations, similar to what you did before, but stateside with better pay and no deployment requirements unless you volunteer. I can make calls. You'd have offers within 48 hours. 3 paths, 3 completely different futures, all of them possible because she'd done what she'd been trained to do when violence came calling. I need time to think, Sophia said. You have 72 hours before the hospital meeting, Walsh said. Take them. But Ms. Reyes, understand something. What happened yesterday is going to define how people see you going forward. You can't put this back in the box. You can't go back to being anonymous. The question is, what do you do with that visibility? Morrison's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression shifting. We have a problem. The media just identified you by name. It's breaking now. Walsh cursed softly and pulled out her own phone. Chen did the same. Sophia watched their faces change as they read whatever was flooding their screens. How bad? She asked. Bums. Fired nurse who saved Marine is decorated combat veteran, Chen read aloud. Hospital that terminated her now under federal investigation. It's everywhere. CNN, Fox, MSNBC, every major paper. She looked up. You're about to become a household name. Sophia's phone started vibrating in her pocket, continuous buzz of incoming notifications. She pulled it out and saw the flood. Texts, calls, social media mentions, news alerts. Her name was trending on 3 different platforms. We can provide security, Walsh said immediately. Media liaison, crisis management. You don't have to face this alone. I'm not in danger from the media. You might be in danger from the network we just dismantled. Vale's voice was sharp. Crimson Shore had 27 active members. We arrested all of them. But networks have sympathizers, supporters, people on the periphery. You're visible now. You're connected to the operation that took them down. That makes you a target. Sophia felt the tactical part of her brain engage automatically. You think they'd retaliate? I think we can't rule it out, which is why we're assigning protective detail until we're certain the threat is neutralized. I don't need protection. It's not optional. Walsh's tone left no room for argument. You're a material witness in a federal terrorism case. You'll have protection whether you want it or not. The only question is whether you cooperate or make our jobs harder. Sophia wanted to argue, wanted to assert that she could handle herself, that she'd survived combat zones and didn't need babysitters. But the rational part of her brain recognized the logic. She was visible, connected, and potentially vulnerable. Pride was a luxury she couldn't afford. Fine, but low profile. I'm not living in a safe house. Agreed. 2-person rotation, unmarked vehicles, distant surveillance, unless there's active threat. Walsh nodded to Chen. Coordinate with the field office. I want this in place within the hour. Chen left the room, already making calls. Morrison gathered up the folders, organizing them into neat stacks. Vale was watching Sophia with an expression she couldn't quite read. What? She asked. You're handling this better than most people would. Sudden fame, federal investigation, security threats. Most civilians would be falling apart. I'm not most civilians. No, he agreed. You're not. Walsh stood, signaling the meeting was moving toward conclusion. Ms. Reyes, I need you to understand something. What you did yesterday was extraordinary, but it also put you at the center of a situation with serious implications. The hospital, the investigation, the media attention, the security concerns, all of it is connected. How you navigate the next 72 hours will determine what your life looks like going forward. No pressure, Sophia said dryly. A slight smile crossed Walsh's face. You've been under worse pressure. You'll figure it out. She extended her hand. If you need anything, anything at all, you call Agent Morrison directly. Clear? Clear. The handshake was firm, professional. Then Walsh left, Morrison following after providing Sophia with contact information and security protocols. That left just her and Vale in the briefing room. You're really considering the FBI offer, he said. It wasn't a question. I'm considering all of them. The hospital will give you power, authority, the ability to fix a broken system from the inside. Vale stood, moved to look out the small window at the city beyond. The FBI will give you purpose, mission focus. The ability to make a difference on a larger scale. DoD contract worker will give you the familiar, tactical medicine, operator culture, deployment on your own terms. Sounds like you've thought about this more than I have. I've watched a lot of people try to transition from military to civilian life. Most of them struggle to find something that feels real, something that matches the intensity of what they left behind. He turned to face her. You're not struggling with that. You're struggling with the fact that you found it yesterday, and now you have to decide if you're willing to embrace it. Sophia met his eyes. You don't know me well enough to make that analysis. I know you ran toward Gunfire when everyone else ran away. I know you took a bullet without even noticing because you were focused on the mission. I know you turned down a safe, comfortable job because it wasn't the right fight. His voice was quiet, intense. That tells me everything I need to know about who you are. Before Sophia could respond, the door opened and Chen returned. Security detail is in place. 2 agents in the parking garage. 2 more will follow you home. They'll maintain 24-hour coverage until we clear the threat assessment. How long will that take? 7 to 10 days minimum? Could be longer if we identify credible threats. Chen's expression softened slightly. I know you don't like this, but it's necessary. I understand. There's one more thing. Chen pulled out her phone, showed Sophia the screen. The hospital just released a statement. Sophia read it. Corporate language, carefully crafted by lawyers. Deep regret over the circumstances of her termination. Commitment to reviewing all policies and procedures. Announcement of Mr. Hendrick's suspension pending investigation. Invitation for Miss Reyes to return to discuss her future with Lakewood General. They're trying to control the narrative, Sophia said. Unsuccessfully. Chen scrolled to another article. This is from the Lakewood Tribune, published 20 minutes ago. Local investigative reporter did a deep dive on your personnel file. Every complaint you filed, every safety concern you raised, every time you were punished for doing the right thing. It's all public now. Sophia scanned the article. It was thorough, detailed, damning. Quotes from other nurses who'd witnessed the retaliation. Documentation of the incidents she'd reported. A timeline showing the pattern of harassment leading to her termination. And at the end, a statement from Patricia Morrison, the board member, saying the hospital failed Ms. Reyes and failed the patient she was trying to protect. This is going to get worse for them before it gets better, Vale observed. Good, Sophia said simply. Chen's phone rang. She answered, listened, her expression growing more serious. Understood. We're leaving now. She ended the call and looked at Sophia. That was Morrison. We need to get you out of this building. Media trucks are setting up outside. Someone leaked that you were here. I can handle reporters. It's not just reporters. There's a crowd forming. Supporters, protesters, people with signs. This is turning into a spectacle. Chen moved toward the door. We're using the underground garage, unmarked vehicle. Let's go. They moved quickly through the corridors, Chen in front, Vale keeping pace beside Sophia. Other agents nodded as they passed, some with respect, others with curiosity. Everyone knew who she was now. The elevator took them down 3 levels to the secure parking area. A black SUV was waiting, engine running, 2 agents inside. Chen opened the back door. Get in. They'll take you home. Don't talk to anyone. Don't answer your door. Don't respond to media requests. We'll coordinate everything through official channels. Sophia climbed in. Vale leaned down to the window. This is going to move fast now. The story, the attention, the pressure. Don't make any decisions while you're in the middle of the storm. Wait until you can think clearly. When will that be? When you stop seeing gunfire every time you close your eyes. The SUV pulled away before Sophia could respond to that. The 2 agents in front, both male, both professional, didn't speak except to confirm her address. They took a route that avoided the front of the federal building, emerging onto a side street away from the media presence. Sophia watched the city pass by the tinted windows. Normal people doing normal things. Shopping, walking dogs, grabbing coffee, completely unaware that 27 domestic terrorists had been arrested last night. Completely unaware that the woman in the back of this SUV had been the catalyst. The weight of it was starting to hit her. Not the violence. She'd processed violence before, knew how to compartmentalize it. But the visibility, the exposure. The fact that her name and face were now public connected to a federal terrorism case, splashed across every news outlet in the country. She'd spent 3 years trying to disappear into civilian anonymity. Now she was more visible than she'd ever been in uniform. Her phone buzzed. Her brother again. She answered this time. "Are you out of your mind?" Diego's voice was pure panic. "You got shot? You took down armed terrorists?" "What the hell, Sophia?" "I'm fine. It's just a graze." "Just a graze?" "Mom is losing her mind. She's seen every news report. She's calling me every 10 minutes asking if you're safe, if you're coming home." "I can't come home right now. I'm in the middle of a federal investigation." "So it's true? All of it? The hospital fired you, and then you saved a Marine, and now you're some kind of hero?" Sophia rubbed her face with her free hand. "It's more complicated than that." "Of course it is. It's always complicated with you." Diego's voice softened. "Are you okay? Really okay?" "I don't know yet." "That's honest, at least." A pause. "What are you going to do?" "I have no idea." "Well, when you figure it out, call Mom. She needs to hear your voice. And Sophia, I'm proud of you. Scared out of my mind, but proud." "Thanks, Diego." The call ended. Sophia leaned back against the seat, closing her eyes. The painkillers were wearing off again, and her shoulder was a constant throb of protest. She needed to rest, needed to process, needed to think through her options without the pressure of immediate decisions. But the universe apparently had other plans. The SUV slowed, then stopped. Sophia opened her eyes to see her apartment building ahead, and a crowd of reporters camped outside. News vans, cameras, journalists with microphones. At least 20 people, all waiting. "How did they find my address?" she asked. The driver glanced back, apologetic. "Public records, voter registration, property databases. You're not hard to find if someone knows where to look. Can you get me inside without going through them?" "Working on it." He made a call, spoke in low tones, then hung up. "Building manager is opening the service entrance in the back. We'll take you through the alley." They circled the block, pulled into the narrow service alley behind the building. The manager, an older man Sophia had never spoken to beyond a polite nod, was waiting with the door propped open. "Ms. Reyes," he said as she climbed out. "I'm sorry about this circus. I've called the police about trespassing, but they say the reporters are on public property." "It's not your fault. Thank you for this. You saved lives yesterday. Least I can do is help you get some peace." He held the door wider. "Service elevator goes straight to your floor. I'll make sure nobody follows." Sophia slipped inside, the two agents staying close. The service elevator was cramped and smelled like cleaning supplies, but it delivered her to her floor without incident. The agents checked the hallway, checked her apartment door, then motioned for her to unlock it. Inside, everything was exactly as she'd left it. But it felt different now, smaller, like she'd grown too large for this space in the span of a day. One of the agents, younger, maybe late 20s, positioned himself by the door. The other moved to check the windows, the fire escape, the sight lines. Professional, thorough. "We'll rotate every 6 hours," the younger one said. "My partner will take the first exterior watch. I'll be out in the hallway. You need anything, you knock twice. Emergency, you knock 3 times fast. Clear?" "Clear." They left her alone. Sophia stood in her living room, listening to the muffled sounds of the building, the distant noise of traffic, the new reality settling around her like a cage. Her phone buzzed. Text from Jennifer. "Are you home? Can I come over? I need to talk to you." Sophia hesitated, then replied, "Media outside might not be safe. I'll use the service entrance. Building manager likes me. Please. It's important." 20 minutes later, there was a knock. Sophia checked through the peephole. Jennifer, looking harried but determined. She opened the door. Jennifer swept in, carrying a bag from Sophia's favorite Thai place and a bottle of wine. "You look terrible." "I got shot." "So I heard." Jennifer set the food on the counter, pulled out containers. "When's the last time you ate?" Sophia couldn't remember. "Yesterday morning, maybe?" "Eat, then we talk." They ate in silence for a few minutes, the familiar ritual of shared meals cutting through the strangeness. Jennifer had been her mentor when she'd started at Lakewood General, had taught her the unwritten rules of the ER, had become something close to a friend. "The hospital is in chaos," Jennifer said finally. Hendricks is gone. Brennan is suspended. 3 other doctors are under review. The board had an emergency session that lasted 6 hours, and everyone is talking about you. Saying what? That you were right. About everything. The safety concerns, the medical errors, the culture of protecting bad doctors over good nurses. People are coming forward now, sharing their own stories of retaliation and harassment. It's like you opened a floodgate. Sophia set down her fork. I didn't mean to start a revolution. Maybe not, but you did. Jennifer's eyes were serious. They're offering you Director of Emergency Preparedness, full authority over protocols, staffing, safety measures, salary that's triple what you were making. And Morrison, Patricia Morrison from the board, she wants you to help rebuild the entire culture. She's calling you a catalyst for necessary change. A day ago they fired me. A day ago they were afraid of you. Now they're terrified of what happens if you don't come back. Jennifer leaned forward. But I didn't come here to pressure you. I came to tell you something else. What? 23 nurses have signed a petition saying they'll resign if the hospital doesn't implement the safety changes you recommended. They're using your documentation, your incident reports, everything you fought for. They're making it the hill they'll die on. Sophia felt something shift in her chest. 23 people are willing to lose their jobs? 23 people are willing to fight for what's right, because you showed them it was possible. Jennifer's voice was quiet, intense. You didn't just save a Marine yesterday, Sophia. You saved the idea that speaking up matters, that one person can make a difference, that doing the right thing isn't career suicide, it's heroism. The words landed heavy. Sophia had never thought of herself as heroic. She'd just done what needed doing, made the calls that needed making, refused to let bad medicine happen on her watch. But apparently, that was enough. I don't know if I'm going back, she said honestly. I know, and that's okay. Whatever you decide, those 23 nurses are still going to fight. You lit that fire. It's burning now whether you're there to tend it or not. Jennifer stood, started clearing the containers. But I hope you do come back, because the hospital needs you, and I think maybe you need it too. I need a broken system that tried to destroy me. You need a fight worth fighting, and fixing that system, making it actually serve patients instead of protecting incompetence, that's a fight that matters. After Jennifer left, Sophia stood at her window, looking down at the reporters still camped outside. They were waiting for a story, waiting for her to appear, to make a statement, to give them something to broadcast. She closed the curtains and sat in the darkness of her living room, her shoulder throbbing, her mind racing through impossible choices. Her phone lit up with a new notification. Email from an unknown sender. The subject line read, "You don't know what you've started." Sophia's tactical instincts flared. She almost deleted it unread, but something made her open it instead. The message was brief. They arrested our brothers. They think this is over. They're wrong. You made yourself visible, Cruz. That was a mistake. We know where you live. We know where you work. We know everyone you care about. This isn't finished. No signature. Sent from a burner email account, untraceable. Sophia's hands were steady as she forwarded it to Agent Morrison with a single line. Received this 5 minutes ago. Thought you should know. His response came within 60 seconds. Security detail is being upgraded. Do not leave your apartment. We're tracking the source now. She set the phone down and sat very still, listening to the building around her, the hum of appliances, the distant murmur of television from a neighboring apartment, the creak of footsteps in the hallway, her security detail making rounds. Somewhere out there, someone was watching. Someone was angry. Someone had just made a threat against her life. Sophia should have been afraid, should have felt the cold grip of fear that came with being targeted. Instead, she felt something else entirely, something cold and familiar and dangerous. She felt ready. Because if there was one thing her years in combat had taught her, it was this. When someone threatens you, they've made a critical error. They've revealed themselves. They've shown you where to aim. Her phone rang. Morrison. We've traced the email to a public library computer in Maryland. Local PD is pulling security footage now, but Ms. Reyes, we have to take this seriously. This could be bluster, or it could be a credible threat from Crimson Shore sympathizers. I understand. We're moving you to a secure location, tonight. Pack a bag with essentials. Detail will transport you within the hour. No. Silence on the line. Then, "Excuse me? I'm not running. I'm not hiding. If someone wants to make a move against me, let them try. But I'm not going to spend the next month in a safe house because of an email. Ms. Reyes, this is a direct threat. I've received direct threats before. I'm still here." Her voice was calm, certain. "Upgrade the security if you want. Monitor my movements. But I'm not going into hiding. That's not negotiable." Another pause. "I need to consult with Deputy Director Walsh." "Consult," but the answer is still no. The call ended. Sophia sat in the darkness, waiting for the inevitable call back, the pressure to reconsider, the tactical arguments for why she should comply with protective custody. But what they didn't understand, what they couldn't understand unless they'd lived through what she had, was that running from threats gave them power. Hiding from danger made you a victim. The only way to win this kind of fight was to refuse to be afraid. Her phone buzzed. Text from Vale. "Morrison briefed me on the threat. He says you're refusing protective custody. That's either very brave or very stupid." Sophia typed back, "Can't it be both?" His response came quickly. "Probably, but for what it's worth, I understand. Fear is a weapon. You're refusing to let them use it." "Exactly. Just don't get yourself killed before the commendation ceremony. Would be awkward." Despite everything, Sophia smiled. Outside, night was falling over the city. The reporters were packing up their equipment, heading to their next story. The security detail was changing shifts, and somewhere, someone who'd sent that threat was waiting to see if she'd break. They were going to be disappointed. Sophia's phone lit up one more time. Private number. She answered. "Ms. Reyes?" The voice was older, authoritative, unfamiliar. "This is General Martin Shepard, United States Marine Corps. I'm calling because Captain Vale recommended I speak with you directly about a rather unprecedented situation." Sophia sat up straighter. "Sir? 24 hours ago, you saved the life of one of my officers and preserved a critical counterterrorism operation. I've reviewed the security footage. I've read the after-action reports. And I've spoken with Captain Vale at length about your performance under fire." A pause. "Ms. Reyes, I don't know if you're aware, but what you did yesterday qualifies for recognition at the highest levels of civilian honor. I'm personally recommending you for a presidential citation." The words didn't feel real. "Sir, I don't think—" "I'm not asking your opinion, Ms. Reyes. I'm informing you of what's going to happen. In approximately 72 hours, you're going to receive a formal invitation to the White House. You're going to be recognized by the President of the United States for extraordinary valor in the service of your country. And then you're going to become one of the most visible examples of civilian heroism this nation has seen in years." Sophia's mind was reeling. "General, I was just doing my job." "Your job was saving lives as a nurse. What you did was neutralize armed hostiles, preserve federal operations, and demonstrate the kind of courage we try to instill in our finest warriors." His voice softened slightly. "You're a former Navy corpsman who served with MARSOC. You know what valor looks like. You lived it, and yesterday you proved it never left you." "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. Just be ready, because the nation is about to know your name, your story, and what you represent." Another pause. "And Ms. Reyes? Thank you. For protecting one of my Marines, that debt doesn't get forgotten." The call ended, leaving Sophia sitting in stunned silence. Presidential citation. White House ceremony. National recognition. 24 hours ago, she'd been fired from her job and escorted out of a hospital like a criminal. Now she was being summoned to meet the president. The universe had a twisted sense of humor. Her apartment suddenly felt impossibly small, the walls closing in with the weight of everything that was coming. Media attention, death threats, federal investigations, White House ceremonies, 3 job offers that would each reshape her entire life. And somewhere in all of that chaos, she had to figure out who she wanted to be. The decorated veteran who'd never quite fit into civilian life, the crusading nurse who fought broken systems, the federal agent serving a larger mission, the tactical operator returning to familiar ground, or maybe something else entirely, something she hadn't figured out yet. Sophia stood, moved to her closet, pulled out the shadow box she'd never displayed. Her corpsman insignia, Purple Heart, combat action ribbon, proof of who she'd been, what she'd done, the person she'd tried to leave behind. She set it on her dresser where she could see it. No more hiding, no more pretending. Whatever came next, she was done being anyone other than exactly who she was. Her phone buzzed one final time. Unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered, heavy breathing on the other end. Then a voice, distorted but intelligible. "You should have stayed down, hero. Now you've made this personal." The line went dead. Sophia set the phone down carefully and walked to her window, pulled back the curtain just enough to see the street below. The security detail was visible now. One SUV parked with clear sight lines, agents moving in coordinated patterns. But they were watching for external threats, for people approaching from the outside. They weren't watching for the threat that might already be inside. The phone woke her at 6:17 a.m., drilling into sleep that felt like drowning. Sophia's hand shot out automatically, years of emergency response, making the motion reflexive even before consciousness fully returned. "Reyes. Ms. Reyes, this is Agent Morrison. I know we said 9, but we need you here now. Something's happened." She was already sitting up, adrenaline cutting through exhaustion. "What kind of something?" "The kind we don't discuss on unsecured lines. A car's already on its way to your location. 5 minutes." The line went dead. Sophia stared at the phone, her mind snapping into tactical mode. Federal agents don't send cars at dawn unless something's gone catastrophically wrong. She was dressed in 3 minutes, jeans, dark shirt, boots suitable for running if necessary. Her shoulder screamed protest as she pulled the shirt on, but the wound was clean, no signs of infection. Small mercies. The black SUV pulled up exactly 5 minutes later. The agent driving didn't speak beyond confirming her identity, just handed her into the back seat where Agent Chen was already waiting. Chen's expression was granite. "How much did Morrison tell you?" "Nothing." "Good, because this conversation stays in this vehicle." Chen pulled out a tablet, brought up surveillance footage. At 0300 hours, federal agents executed simultaneous raids on domestic terror cells in 14 cities. Captain Vale's operation went active early. "Why early? You said 72 hours." "Because at 0245, someone leaked operational details to one of the target networks. We had to move immediately or lose everything." Chen's jaw tightened. 3 agents were injured in Chicago when the targets were ready for us. 1 critically. Sophia's stomach dropped. "The leak came from inside." "We believe so. And we believe it's connected to what happened at the hospital yesterday." Chen swiped to a new image. Security footage from Lakewood General, timestamped during the hostage situation. "Marcus Torres, the older gunman. We've been interrogating him overnight. He claims he had inside information about Vale's movements, knew exactly when and where to intercept him." "From who?" "He's not talking, but here's what we know. Someone with access to federal law enforcement databases has been feeding intelligence to these networks for at least 6 months. They knew about yesterday's incident within an hour, and they knew you were involved." The tablet showed a new image, a screenshot from an encrypted messaging app. The text was brief. "Operation compromised. Marine survived. Civilian intervened. Former military. Combat medic. Name Sophia Reyes. Eliminate." The world narrowed to that single word. Eliminate. "They've put a target on you," Chen said quietly. "You stopped their plan yesterday. You became a problem that needs solving." Sophia forced her breathing to stay steady. "How credible is the threat?" "Credible enough that I pulled you out of your apartment at dawn." "These people don't make empty threats, and they've demonstrated capability." Chen paused. "There's more. The hospital fired you based on complaints filed by Dr. Brennan. We subpoenaed his communications overnight. He's been in contact with a network of physicians facing malpractice suits, professional sanctions, loss of privileges. Some of those physicians have financial ties to organizations we're investigating. You're saying the complaints against me weren't just about ego. We're saying Dr. Brennan may have had external motivation to remove you from that hospital. A combat-trained nurse asking too many questions, noticing patterns, documenting irregularities. That's a problem for people running certain operations." Sophia's mind raced through implications. What kind of operations? Medical fraud, for one. Unnecessary procedures, inflated billing, kickback schemes, but also something worse. We're finding connections between certain medical facilities and the movement of controlled substances, falsified death certificates, suspicious patient transfers. Chen's eyes were hard. Your hospital might have been part of a pipeline, Sophia, and you were getting too close to seeing it. The SUV pulled into an underground parking structure beneath the federal building. Armed security met them at the entrance, escorted them through corridors that smelled of concrete and institutional coffee. They bypassed the main elevators, took a secure lift to a floor with no markings. The conference room they entered held 10 people, half in FBI tactical gear, the rest in suits that screamed federal authority. Captain Vale stood near the far wall, his arm still in a sling, talking rapidly with a man in navy dress blues. He looked up as Sophia entered, relief flashing across his face. "You're here. Good." Against my better judgment, Sophia scanned the room, automatically cataloging exits, threat vectors, power dynamics, old habits. "Someone want to explain what's happening?" The man in navy dress blues turned, 4 stars on his shoulders. Admiral. Sophia's spine straightened automatically. "Miss Reyes, I'm Admiral James Hartley, JSOC." His voice carried the weight of someone used to commanding rooms. "I've been briefed on your actions yesterday. Impressive work." "Thank you, sir." "Don't thank me yet. We've got a situation." Hartley gestured to screens mounted on the wall. They showed maps, surveillance photos, tactical diagrams. "The raids we conducted overnight netted 47 arrests across 14 cities. We seized weapons, explosives, detailed plans for coordinated attacks on federal buildings, mass transit systems, and civilian targets. Captain Vale's operation was successful." "But," Sophia said, reading the tension in the room, "but the leak compromised 3 additional operations still in progress. We have agents in the field who are now exposed. We have ongoing investigations that may be blown, and we have someone inside federal law enforcement actively working against us." Hartley's expression hardened. Someone with high-level access and significant motivation. Agent Morrison stepped forward, opening a laptop. "We've been analyzing communication patterns, database queries, access logs. The leak originated from someone with clearance to multiple classified systems. That narrows our suspect pool to approximately 300 individuals across 5 agencies." "That's not narrow," Sophia said, "which is why we need a different approach." Morrison pulled up a new screen. Personnel files, phone records, financial transactions. "The person we're looking for has connections to the networks we took down. They also have connections to Lakewood General Hospital, and based on timing and information specificity, we believe they have direct knowledge of yesterday's incident." Sophia felt pieces clicking together. "You think someone at the hospital is connected to the leak?" "We know someone is," Chen said. "We've identified unusual financial activity in 3 hospital accounts. We found encrypted communications between hospital administration and individuals we've linked to the terror networks. And we've discovered that several key personnel at Lakewood General have histories that don't match their official records." The screen changed to show photographs. Sophia recognized some faces: board members, senior physicians, administrative staff. Others were unfamiliar. Then one face appeared that made everything stop. Martin Hendricks. But the photograph wasn't recent. It was military, dress uniform, dated 15 years earlier. And the name beneath it wasn't Hendricks. "Major Richard Thornton," Morrison said. "Former Army intelligence. Dishonorably discharged in 2011 for leaking classified information to private contractors. Disappeared from federal radar shortly after. Resurfaced 6 years later as Martin Hendricks with a completely fabricated civilian identity." Sophia stared at the image. "The man who fired me is a disgraced intelligence officer running under a false identity, and possibly coordinating intelligence sharing between domestic terror networks and compromised federal personnel." Chen pulled up more files. "We've been tracking suspicious activity around Lakewood General for 8 months. Unexplained deaths, patients who disappeared from records, pharmaceutical discrepancies. We thought it was standard medical fraud. Now we think it was cover for something much larger." Captain Vale moved closer, his voice low. "Sophia, The reason those men targeted me yesterday. They knew my exact location, my timing, my security detail. That information came from someone with access to operational planning. Someone who knew I'd be at that hospital at that specific time. How many people knew? 12. All federal law enforcement or military, all with verified clearances. Bale's expression was grim. One of them is a traitor, and Thornton, Hendricks, is connected to them somehow. Admiral Hartley cut through the tension. Here's what we know. Thornton has been running a sophisticated operation using the hospital as a nexus point. We don't know the full scope yet, but evidence suggests he's been facilitating communication, moving money, possibly providing safe houses or medical support for individuals on federal watch lists. Yesterday's attack wasn't just about killing Captain Vale. It was about protecting a larger network. And I got in the way, Sophia said. You did more than that. You exposed him. The moment you stepped into that firefight and demonstrated tactical competence, you became a threat to his entire operation. Hartley paused. Which is why the threat against you is extremely serious. These people don't forgive witnesses. The room fell silent except for the hum of electronics. Sophia processed rapidly. False identity, intelligence background, access to hospital systems, connection to domestic terrorists, and now a federal investigation closing in. Thornton was cornered. Cornered people made desperate moves. What do you need from me? She asked. Morrison exchanged glances with Chen. We need you to go back to the hospital. Sophia's eyebrows rose. Explain. The board meeting scheduled for this afternoon. They're planning to offer you reinstatement, full apology, significant financial compensation. We need you to accept. You want me to go back to work for the man trying to have me killed. We want you to help us catch him in the act. Chen pulled up a tactical diagram of the hospital. Thornton doesn't know we've identified him yet. He thinks he's still operating undercover. If you return to the hospital, act like everything's normal. He'll either try to neutralize you quietly, or he'll make contact with his network to coordinate. Either way, you're using me as bait. We're asking you to help us prevent future attacks, Hartley said. The networks we disrupted last night are wounded but not dead. They're going to reorganize, retaliate. Thornton is our best lead to finding the federal mole and dismantling what's left of their infrastructure. But we need him to make a move. We need him to expose himself. Sophia looked around the room. These people were asking her to walk back into a threat zone, to deliberately paint a target on herself, to trust that federal protection would keep her alive while they ran their operation. Captain Vale stepped forward. If you say no, we'll find another way. Nobody here will judge you for walking away from this. Yes, they will, Sophia said, and I'd judge myself. She turned to Chen. What's the operational plan? The next 2 hours were tactical briefing and preparation. Chen laid it out with clinical precision. Sophia would attend the board meeting, accept reinstatement under specific conditions that would give her access to administrative areas. Federal agents would maintain surveillance, plant monitoring equipment, track all communications in and out of the hospital. Sophia would wear a wire, carry a panic button, and follow strict protocols for maintaining cover. You don't investigate, Morrison emphasized. You don't confront. You return to work, you observe, you report. We handle everything else. What about my safety? Armed federal protection 24/7. Plainclothes agents inside the hospital posing as patients, vendors, maintenance staff. We'll have eyes on you constantly. Chen pulled up photos of the agents who'd be deployed. You won't be alone. Sophia studied the operational plan, the contingencies, the extraction protocols. It was thorough, professional, the kind of planning she'd seen in military operations. But plans never survived first contact. She knew that better than anyone. When does this start? The board meeting is at 2 p.m. We insert you at 13:30, gives us time to position assets. Morrison checked his watch. You've got 4 hours to prepare. We'll brief you on communication protocols, surveillance equipment, emergency procedures. I need something first, Sophia said. I need to talk to Thornton's file. Everything you have on him. If I'm walking into this, I need to understand who I'm dealing with. Chen nodded. Follow me. The classified briefing room was smaller, more secure. Chen pulled up Thornton's complete file. Military service, intelligence postings, the incident that led to his discharge. Sophia read quickly, absorbing details. Richard Thornton had been brilliant, top of his class at West Point, fast-tracked through intelligence, multiple commendations for analytical work in Iraq. Then he'd been caught selling classified operational details to private military contractors. The investigation revealed a pattern of selling information to the highest bidder, motivated not by ideology, but by greed. His discharge had been quiet, no criminal prosecution in exchange for cooperation with ongoing investigations. But he'd disappeared before they could fully leverage him. He vanished in 2012, Chen said, resurfaced in 2018 with perfect documentation as Martin Hendricks, college degrees, employment history, references, everything. He'd either bought a complete identity package or had help from someone with serious resources. Someone like the networks you're investigating now. Exactly. We think he traded his intelligence skills for protection and a new life. He's been working for them ever since, using the hospital as cover. But Chen pulled up financial records. He's good at hiding money. We've tracked over $2 million moving through shell companies connected to him, but we can't prove the direct links yet. What happens to him when this is over? If we get solid evidence of his involvement in yesterday's attack and the leak, he's looking at life in federal prison. Treason, terrorism support, attempted murder of federal officers, he won't see daylight again. Sophia looked at Thornton's photograph. The man who'd fired her, who'd called her insubordinate, who'd protected incompetent doctors and punished competent nurses. That man was a traitor running a sophisticated criminal operation, and she'd threatened to expose it by simply doing her job. He knew I was dangerous the moment I questioned Dr. Brennan, she said slowly. Not because I was insubordinate, because I was paying attention. Combat veterans pay attention differently, Chen agreed. You see patterns, connections, things that don't fit. Thornton recognized that in you. That's why he moved so fast to get rid of you. And now you're sending me back into his territory, with an entire federal task force backing you up. Chen's expression softened slightly. I know what we're asking, Sophia. I know the risk, but you're uniquely positioned to help us end this. You've already proven you can handle yourself under pressure. We need that. Sophia closed the file. I want full tactical briefing on every agent involved. I want to know their positions, their response protocols, their extract procedures. I want communication redundancy, multiple channels, multiple methods. And I want authority to abort if the situation deteriorates beyond acceptable risk parameters. Done. One more thing, Captain Vale's operation, the ongoing parts that are still exposed. I want to know what we're protecting. What's at stake beyond catching one traitor? Chen hesitated, then pulled up another classified file. Operation Sentinel, multi-year investigation into coordinated domestic terror planning. The networks we hit last night were planning simultaneous attacks on July 4th, federal buildings, major transportation hubs, high-profile events. Casualty projections ranged from hundreds to thousands depending on execution success. Sophia's breath caught. They were planning mass murder. They still are. We wounded them, but we didn't kill them. The remaining cells are adapting, reorganizing. If Thornton gets intelligence about our current operations to them, people die. If we can flip him, use him to identify the federal mole, we can prevent that. The weight of it settled over Sophia like physical pressure. This wasn't just about justice for herself or punishment for Thornton. Lives hung in the balance, concrete, measurable, preventable deaths if they succeeded. I'm in, she said. Tell me everything. The briefing consumed the next 3 hours. Communication protocols using encrypted devices disguised as standard hospital equipment. Emergency extraction routes mapped through the hospital's service corridors. Code phrases for different threat levels. Detailed profiles of every federal agent who'd be positioned inside and outside the facility. Procedures for evidence collection, documentation, maintaining operational security. Sophia absorbed it all with the focus she'd learned in tactical medicine training, when lives depended